Thanks for joining us, my man.
Appreciate you having me on, man. I've been looking forward to doing this, man.
Yeah, we've known each other for over a decade. Seen each other in the gym. Hit each other back and forth on social media, text messages. Been trying to get you on for a little while. I know you're busy too, but let's tell everybody a little bit about you and your journey. Tell everyone about like your basketball journey. How did you get into player development?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like just by some friend doing a favor for some friends. Originally I was just gonna be a college coach. I got a 4-year degree from Nebraska. I was a JUCO coach for 3 years, and then I was also, on the bench at the University of Nebraska for 4 years, where we was in the Big 12 and also in the Big 10. So did a lot of player development out there for Coach Doc Sadler, who's actually at the University of Kansas now. So definitely, picked up a lot of experience at the highest level of college basketball, and that's kind of what I was going to go into. And I kind of come home for a short period of time, and just it turned into like working out a couple of my buddies for kids as kind of a favor, and that morphed into two or three more and two or three more, and before you know it, it become a pretty big thing, really.
So what made you realize that this was something you wanted to do full time?
Yeah, I just think it's the relationships you build with people, and just I've always just kind of enjoyed seeing people's dreams come true. You get a lot of that at the college level when people make it and you win, or they make it big, at the level they're playing at. But then, you take it back down to younger kids that are trying to get to that level, and you meet so many people that are just, that you see have the talent to do it. Maybe they don't have the right people around or the right direction, and sometimes the right skill set. They're just missing certain elements. So when you're able to kind of step in and fill those voids and elevate players and help their goals and dreams come true. I mean, to me that's what life's all about, is just helping other people.
Absolutely. Who were some of your biggest influences as a trainer?
I wouldn't say I've had a lot of major influences on trainers. It's more just, of course, just like anybody else, you look at things and you learn from other people, and obviously I do that as well. And I watch a lot of basketball. I record a lot of basketball. I go back and watch a lot of games, and obviously I study moves and how people respond to different defenses, and obviously I read a lot of things, and I kind of tie my own stuff into it too, and I just kind of develop my own little niche with doing it that way. But I've never really had, like, I guess you would say, like a mentor or somebody that just said, "Hey, like this is how I've trained people." It's just more like me studying it and just kind of branching off other ideas and stuff and kind of putting my own thing together, I'd say.
So what motivates you every day?
Man, to see other people make it. I tell people all the time, like, I've been on the other side of it when people accomplish those goals and dreams, and like the feeling you get from that is like it's really nothing else you can experience. You can't put a price tag on that. When somebody really truly puts the work in, they get that. They make that AAU team, they make that high school team, they get that Division 1 offer, they get that college offer, they get that pro contract, and they actually make it. Like, there's just really, to me, no substitute for that, because obviously I'm a big, anybody that knows me, I'm big on work ethic and earning things and stuff. So when you see people that really do it the right way, and then you see the fruits of those labors come true and the dreams come true, it's just like that's a priceless thing to me. That's every year one of my favorite things is to watch the NBA draft, and I've happened to had a couple of people I'm associated with drafted in the last 3 years. But even if I don't have anybody associated with me, I just like seeing other people's dreams come true, especially the ones that work for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel it the exact same way. I'm into doing what I do, just to be able to be a part of someone's journey, and just to have that feeling. It's very rewarding, isn't it? Very,
No
very
question,
rewarding.
really.
So let's
Can't
get into what is it?
I was just saying, like, you can't really put a price tag on that. Like, when you're around somebody and you see them, you see all the ups and downs, you see, the things that other people don't see, and then you see them actually make it. It's just, it's a very, very rewarding thing.
Yeah, everyone thinks it's always at the pinnacle, but it's a roller coaster ride. People that make it, they're up here, they go down here, they face adversity, but they have to be resilient. Like you're not always riding at the top, even though you make it at those levels, right?
I always tell people all the time, like, I think a lot of kids are fooled. They turn on the TV and they see a finished product. They see Steph Curry or, LeBron James or these guys. And when I say finished product, it's not that they're not still working and getting better, but it's like they're seeing all the highs that they've had. And, they didn't see, they had to transfer high schools 2 or 3 times, or they changed AAU 2 or 3 times, or they didn't have a mom or a dad, or they didn't have, they didn't have three square meals a day. Like nobody sees all that. They just turn them on and see them drop 30, and they just think that this person was just kind of chosen to be able to do this, and they don't see the grind that went into it behind the scenes, all the blood, sweat, and tears, all the ups and downs, all the moments that somebody wanted to quit and give up, and somebody picked them up and kind of showed them a path to make it. Like nobody really sees all that, so I always like to kind of remind kids. I think it's kind of everybody's seen the Jalen Brunson commercial, when his dad's yelling at him and stuff. I think he's like maybe 10 or 12. And I always ask the kids that train me, I said, does he look like an NBA player in this video? And they're all like, no, he doesn't look that good. I was like, right, but look at what he is now. That's a testament to, the time his dad put in with him, and the crazy work ethic I've read about that he has. I mean, he's earned his way into, all the crazy success he's had.
Absolutely. Everyone can put cones out on the floor and run drills, but not everyone can develop players. What separates a trainer from a developer?
Yeah, I tell people all the time, and that's actually a really good way of phrasing it. There's a big difference in somebody, you hire me from 5 to 6 o'clock to work with your child, and I'm there for 5 to 6 o'clock, and then you don't see me again until the next workout. That's more of a trainer. It's not a developer. A lot of the best development things that I do is phone calls or texts or showing up to watch a game or showing up to watch a practice or taking somebody on a car ride to an AAU tournament. Like people don't understand that that's a major, major part of development. I mean, I even read something a few years ago from Trey Young's dad that he talked about all the car rides that they took that he didn't really realize it until he kind of went through it, but like it's all those conversations that kind of went into impacting not only Trey's game but his mindset, which obviously ultimately developed him into an NBA superstar. And he was talking about all those moments and those conversations. Obviously along with the work that he put in, but like you got to have both. It's like all that time you spend with them and all those times that you're talking and maybe you think they're not listening sometime, and then you say that one magical thing that sticks with them or gets them to the next workout or gets them through some adversity they're going through. Like people don't understand how big that really is, and that's somebody that's a developer. That's somebody that cares on a different level. That's somebody that sees the big picture. That's somebody that can like really take you to where you want to go.
What do you evaluate during a player's first workout?
Honestly, like really not even the skill. It's more the ability to listen and the motor. It's like, and when I say listen, like nobody's going to come into a section and try to ignore you. But some people, when you give the little details, they can grasp those details. They can remember those details. They can apply those details. And some people are, dribbling the basketball or just kind of spanning around the gym, kind of on another planet, and they don't really grasp those things. So I always look at people that are able to grasp the little details, and obviously just the ones that are out there giving it everything they got. I think that a lot of times, along with, obviously talent, a lot of times those two things combined, it kind of tells you, where a player's capable of going. I always say, like, some of the best kids I train, like, they pick things up so quickly. It's like you show them a move, and, like, not only are they doing it every time right in the workout, but then you go to their game next week and they're doing it in the game. And it's just like, wow, like they just kind of get it on another level. And that's not all physical. That's a lot mental. That's understanding. That's remembering details. And a lot of times those are the hidden words that are kept out of most people when they talk about development or potential. They don't talk about things like that. And it's just how tall are you? What's your vertical jump? And that stuff's important. But like, look at the NBA. Look at the best guards. Jalen Brunson is not doing it off size and athleticism. Steph Curry's not doing it off size and athleticism. You know, Damian Lillard, Kyrie Irving. You could go down the line. There's a lot of guys like that. They're doing it with obviously crazy talent, no question, but they're also doing it with a lot of these intangible things that they do that goes into making them a great player.
How much of development is skill versus confidence?
Well, I think two things. That's a question you get a lot. Is a parent will bring somebody in, and they'll say, well, I think he's really good, but he doesn't have confidence. And I always say it's usually two things: is it's a demonstrated performance, which is how you play, and your work ethic. So work ethic obviously leads to your results. And a lot of people, you say work ethic, and you gotta understand there's different. This is like a lot of things. There's different levels to that. Some people think work ethic is they went outside and shot for 30 minutes. Whereas I got people that train 4 or 5 hours a day and they think they need to try to find a way to do more. So it's not hard to figure out the person that's doing something for 30 minutes and somebody that's doing it for 4 or 5 hours a day. It's not easy to. It's not hard to figure out over the course of time who's going to take that farther. And a lot of people kind of forget those details. And I think too, this like the people you have around you in your ear. It's like kids are smarter than people think sometimes, about certain things. And sometimes it's like when they have somebody around and they know they're telling them the truth, and they kind of get past the hard part with that person, and they kind of get that person's respect. It gives them confidence. I think that's the reason I have a lot of people tell me, the things I say to their kids give them confidence, and I always tell the parents because they know I'm telling the truth. Like if they're not there yet, or for instance, if they're not a great shooter, I'll be like, hey, you're not a great shooter. It doesn't mean you can't be. It just means you're not right now, and so you have to be honest with. And then all of a sudden, when that kid, you tell them that, then they make 300 a day the next 2 months, and then their shot goes to another level, and then they have a game, they hit 4 or 5 threes, and they come back, and it's like, yeah, that's why what I said means a lot to them, because now when I tell them that was a big time shooting performance, it holds a lot of weight versus, they're out there shooting 20% from three, and their parents are like, oh, it's okay, keep shit. That's not building their confidence. They know it's not real.
How important is basketball IQ?
It's huge. It's huge. It's somebody that's been at the Division 1 level and been around, a lot of NBA guys, and I was at the NBA draft, not this year but last year, but like people don't understand that like being able to play with other players is a major part of it. You're not going to go to any college team, you're not going to go to any Division 1 team, you're not going to go to any NBA team, and it's like you and 6 or 7 bums on the roster. It's going to be other All-State players, other Mr. Basketballs, other region players of the year. I led my team in scoring X amount of years. Like you're going to have all of that. So it's like when you get there, and the coach is trying to put the puzzle together of having a championship caliber team, it's going to be a lot of it comes down to IQ. It's just like how you play with other people. I think a lot of people, kind of lose track of that. But when I talk to college coaches, like I do pretty much every day, the fit is a big thing on when they look at a player. Like I think it's obvious to most people that you have to be good enough. So once they get past the like, okay, this kid is good enough to play here. Now all of a sudden we're talking about fit. What's his work ethic like? What's his mindset like? How does he handle adversity when he has a bad? All those different type things are going to play into it.
What do players misunderstand about getting better?
I think a lot of people mistake time spent with getting better. When I've walked in a lot of different gyms a lot of different times, and I see people in there for hours at a time, but they're not either really working hard enough at it, or they're not working on the right things, and they mistake activity for development. You could watch a kid be in the gym for 3 hours, and yeah, he's in there, but like I could have tucked you in there in 20 minutes and did more with you than you did in 3 hours. So a lot of kids get, they say, well, I was at the gym from 12 to 3, I was there for 3 hours, but it's what are you doing while you're there? And I think a lot of people, get misconstrued on that they just think because they're there or because they're, trying to do something means that there's going to be, results on the other side of it. When if you're not working on the right things, if you don't have the right effort put into it, if you don't really have your mindset locked into what you're doing, like all of those things will be, major setbacks for you.
What are the biggest mistakes young athletes make?
Man, that's a good one. I would say, and I think both these things kind of go hand in hand, but I would say, listening to the wrong people or having the wrong people in their circle. So much of a young player's mindset is developed and shaped by the people they spend the most time around. And I think a lot of times, people kind of lose track of that a little bit. The ones that get really close to me, I'm particular about, if they say I'm going to the gym to shoot with I'm like, who are you going to shoot with? Who are you going to do? Because like, I know all of that stuff has a major impact and it all adds up. So, the guy that goes to the gym with, a couple of buddies that are serious about going there and working hard versus now I'm going to the gym with a couple of buddies that's going to turn on the shooting machine and, shoot shots half speed. Like that's two different worlds. So, you always try to embark on them that, who they're around and like who's in their ear, who can impact how they think about things, who can impact how they respond to things, who can get them thinking at a higher level. I always like to say like, you got to see something before you can really become it. I can sit here and say, hey, I think you're a college player, or hey, I think you're a D1 player, or whatever the case may be. But like, if I can't get you to see that vision as the player, it's going to be hard for you there. So that's back to your thing about development. You got to spend enough time around that you can say things and do things and help them to have that vision and see that vision and help those things come to fruition.
What should every player focus on during the off season?
I'm sorry, say that again.
What should every player focus on during the off season?
This sounds kind of silly because it sounds so simple, but it just doesn't happen that much. But like, what makes you a better player? Like what might make you a better player might not be the exact same plan that makes somebody else a better player. You have to identify, things that you're not good at. And where, you might be, great with your offhand. The other guy over here, he might not be great with his offhand. So like, what's good for you might not necessarily, fit the bill for him. And, I think another thing I see is like, kids go to the gym and like they don't really want to work on things that they're not good at, especially when they're a little bit younger. You got to help them to understand that, like, man, I want you to, like when younger kids come to me, with offhand, I'm huge on offhand development. I mean, even with my higher level kids, I work on it almost on a daily basis. But getting them to understand how important it is to have an offhand, to have an offhand and things like that is a big part of it. And then, like I said, just like being able to get each person to understand that like, well, what's best for your development might not be best with somebody else's. So you have to really kind of sit down and be honest with yourself and look at what your weaknesses are and be able to sit down and formulate a plan to make sure you're working on those things.
Yes, sir. Let's talk about a few players. The first one, big news broke this week, going down to prolific prep. So, one of Kentucky's premier prospects, Braxton Keithley, like I just said, committed to prolific prep. He just went out on an official visit to Pacific. You worked with Braxton Keithley for quite some time. What stood out about him early?
Gym rat loves it. Like can't get enough of it. He's the guy he's actually called since we've been on this podcast, but he's the guy that's going to call me at 10 o'clock at night and be in the gym and want to turn on the FaceTime and start doing workouts. Like that's just kind of who Braxton is, and like he has and great players have this, but he's just got kind of a one track mind about being the best player he can be, and a lot of times it's the people that have that one track mind about staying locked in on what it takes for them to be the best player they can be. A lot of times those are the people that make it big, and that's who Braxton's always been. His dad's done a good job at the early years of kind of bringing him up as a former coach with some of that stuff. And since I've stepped in, I think I've helped grow him in a lot of areas like that. But he's just really driven on another level. He's pretty intense type dude. I had him on the phone with one of my younger players a week ago, and then he got off the phone. I was like, "What'd you think?" He's like, "He's intense," and I said, "Exactly. That's kind of how he got to where he's at." So like, yeah, Braxton's just a straight up gym rat. He's a kid that ain't gonna take no for an answer. Every time you tell him you can't do something, he gonna be working 24/7 to show you he can do whatever it is you said he couldn't do. And I think all great players have that little bit of stubbornness to them that, like, oh, you said I can't shoot the three, watch this. You said I can't, handle the ball, watch this. And that's kind of who Braxton is, and that's why Braxton's going to continue to grow. I think he's going to do great at prolific prep. I think it's a great step in his development to go in there and play, with the best players in the country. I know they have a high level coach down there. Obviously, have a lot of, facilities and tools down there that'll kind of elevate Braxton, and I think he's going to do great down there. As a matter of fact, I know he's going to do great.
What has improved the most with Braxton?
With who now?
With Braxton? What's improved the most with him?
Honestly, I think like probably he's always obviously I think in the last couple of months he's gotten more serious about his body. Like even when I see him or talk to him, watch videos, whatever, like I can tell that like he's definitely toned his body up, gotten stronger. Even when I'm watching videos from the Pro 16 this weekend, he's hitting people with his shoulders and bumping them off and knocking them back and creating space. And that's stuff that you see, high level college players and NBA players. Like a Shea Gilchrist knows how to use his shoulders and bump and separate, or Brunson. And like I think I've always kind of taught him the skill side of that, and I think now he's actually kind of growing into his body. His body's maturing. Like I said, he spent more time with his body. I think what he's eating, and I can tell a lot of growth in that area. Which obviously, that's the older you get, the more important it gets. Because I mean, there's some big boys waiting on you at the next level.
Yeah, I mean, we know he's 6'5". I remember going out when I got to go out and work in Eastern Kentucky. Um, what I've seen as far as skill wise, his 3-point shooting, man, it really accelerated over 6 months. His release is so quick. When I first got to see him play, he really wasn't that solid of a 3-point shooter. And then 6 months later, man, he just stayed in the gym, was in the gym, and now he can just light it up. He's got great range. I really seen that from him. Like just developed into a solid 3-point shooter. Uh,
It's funny.
how much?
I was just
What
gonna
it?
say, funny you said that because like you said, 6 months or even a year ago, I used to always like, of course, I did it in a joking way, but I used to always pick at him about it. I'd be like, yeah, but you can't shoot the three that good. Like in college, they're just going to take a step back. Like you got to be able to shoot the three. And I think just me kind of constantly harping on it once again, like he's like, okay, I'm going to show you then. And then of course, he had a video that went viral this last summer. I think he like 115 out of 118 threes, and then next thing you know, he's texting me saying, Drew Hanlon wants me to come work out with Tyrese Maxey and Zach Levine and all of them, and I'm like, get on a plane and go do that.
Yeah, you were talking about those body bumps. Yeah, I watched a highlight earlier of him when he drives baseline and he does that body bump and he separates enough space for about a 6 foot on the baseline and makes it right there at the Pro 16. So most definitely he's got more physical, and I don't think people understand how physical the game is at that level. Like you want to take body bumps, and if you can't take them or give them, like you're not going to be playing the game, right, Greg?
No question about it. I tell people all the time, the game is only going to get bigger, faster, stronger as you climb levels. As you climb levels, it's not going to go the other direction. So if your body is not learning that and you're not growing your body, then at some point you're going to hit a wall. So I mean, like I said, he's taking all that stuff a lot more serious in the last few months, and like you said, and other people's told me as well. Other people are kind of seeing that he's done that, and that's a big thing because I mean, you get to college and you got to do that day in day out, and then you're back in practice the next day, and like you hitting all these bigger, stronger bodies on everything that you do. They're 15, 20 pounds heavier than the same guys that you hit in high school. Like not only is it gonna, probably stunt your on court growth, but like it's only so much your body can take when you're always taking hits from the bigger guy and you can't learn to give those hits back and stuff. It's definitely gonna, over the course of time, take its toll on you and probably slow your development down.
Or get injured, right?
That's that's a worst case scenario for sure.
So how much has his body changed since you started working with him?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, a lot, especially the last, 2 or 3 months. Like I could just, I can see it in the way he looks and the way he moves on the floor and the way he's like looking to use his body. I used to always tell him that like, you're ducking contact, you're just jumping over people at the rim and things like that. I was like you got to learn I'm a big angles guy, like being able to play in sharp angles when you drive and stuff. Because I mean, you get to the next level, all those gap defenders and stuff, man, they move quicker. Those gaps close quicker. There's more length there. There's more speed covering those areas, and so like you got to be able to stay on your lines and create tight driving angles. And a lot of that is your level of low, the position of your shoulders, and then being able to initiate contact and play through contact is huge parts of the game at the next level.
So, what kind of work happens behind the scenes with Braxton?
Man, it's like a daily thing. Like I said, he's like, of course, I always have things for him, but like, he's the one that's calling me and asking me if he can do this and that, or will you send me a motivational article, or like, who do I need to be watching in the NBA and summer? He's just the one that's always looking to try to find some kind of advantage over everybody else. So it's like it's a daily thing with him, which that's once again why he's put himself in the position that he's put himself in. I think a lot of times in Kentucky, everybody, maybe on the outside is like, some of the Kentucky basketball is not as good. And I always said, then why are people coming in here and taking our kids for AAU in the top prep schools in the country? Like, it doesn't make any sense to say it's not any good than say that, Brad Bill Elite and Indiana Elite and all the top shoe circuits can come in here and snatch up all the top players. Reed Shepard, Travis Perry, Ty Price, they can get all these guys. It's like, well, why are they coming here? Like, once again, prolific prep, they can pretty much handpick who they want. Well, why are they coming to Kentucky? Because obviously, they see things other people don't see. So I mean, I think it speaks to the talent that we have around the state.
How does Braxton approach different workouts?
Nah, he's the same, honestly. Like he doesn't even. Some people would text me before and say, "What are we working on today?" Or "Can we work on this?" Or "Can we work on that?" And that's all good. Like I enjoy all that feedback, and I do it different ways with different people at different times. But he's the guy that just wants to know what time does the workout start. He don't care what time, he don't care what we're doing. He just wants to make sure he's getting better, and then like he loves the process. Like just loves getting in there and working hard on his game and just getting better. I mean, I know all that sounds kind of simple, but the guy that can do that day in day out is the guy that's going to make it.
What separates him mentally?
I would say that like he thinks on a higher level as far as like when other people are kind of trying to label you and say that you're this or you're that. He's saying no, I'm better than that. No, I can do this. Oh, you said I can't average 25. I'm going to average 30. You said I can't play on this shoe circuit. I'm going to show you. You said I can't get that offer. I'm going to get that offer. And I think once again, I think great players have the ability to think differently. And he definitely thinks differently. And, like, I mean that, like, in the highest regard as a compliment because great players do see themselves differently. And they're not going to let what somebody else thinks, what somebody else writes about them, what somebody else puts on Twitter and Instagram impact what they think. And that's a big thing to be a great player.
Yeah, I remember it was exactly one year ago. Last year was I was down at Rock Hill for the Adidas event. He was playing with TN Impact, and it was the first time EKU and Western got to see him in person, right? And he didn't have a bad game, but it wasn't a Braxton game. He was new to that team, and he was just sitting down on the wall down there, and he was just like, "Dang, I play." You could just tell he has high standards for himself, right? So
Okay.
he wasn't happy with how he played, and I sat down and spoke to him about it, and he could just tell how eager he was to get back on the floor and show him what he had. If you get what I'm saying, he needed that next opportunity. So yeah, he's definitely a kid that doesn't stay down long when he has a bad performance to his standards. He's ready to get back out there and show what he can do. So what do you think his ceiling is?
That's a good question. I think it's definitely untapped. I think that, Braxton is he's going to push it as far as he can. His aspiration is to be an NBA player. And I think we all know that that's not an easy thing for anybody. But I mean, he's at a prep school that's got guys that's going to be in the NBA in a few years, and he's going to be practicing and playing against those guys, and he's going to be trying to outwork them in every drill. So I mean, you can imagine, what that's going to do for his development. I know he's already talked to me about flying down there, periodically and being able to work him out in person and stuff down there too. So like, man, his thing is he wants to shoot to be a professional basketball player, and I'm a little bit different than most people. I say, man, if that's what you want to be, man, let's go for it. Let's just make sure that the work ethic matches the dream, and in his case, it does. So Braxton will max out what he can be as a player, and so that's going to be scary to see what that looks like. You think about, like I said, he's just kind of recently in the last 2 or 3 months kind of gotten more serious about his body. Imagine what he looks like in 2 years. What does he look like in 3 years? He gets Division One, a year of prolific under his belt. He gets a year or two of Division One under his belt. There's no telling what that might look like 3 or 4 years from now.
I think the move to prolific is a great move for him. There's nothing wrong with playing basketball in Eastern Kentucky. Don't get me wrong, but I work with people all throughout the state, and there's people from Louisville, or Lexington. They're like, my kid could score 40 out there, or every night. And I don't think it's a downside to play out there, but at the same time, like playing at prolific, I think I know Braxton doesn't need the, I guess, like the reassurance or the approval or the validity from other people. But I just think, him getting to play down there, he's going to have that opportunity to, say, to prove to people, which he doesn't have to do, but other people will be like, damn, Braxton Keithley is that good, if you get what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like I said, he's got the national stage. I mean, I think he told me they had like 3 or 4 or 5 games on ESPN, and obviously they're going to play against all the top prep school teams in the country. And I mean, it's the best playing the best, and he's going to have those opportunities. And like I said, he's going to do all the things that he's supposed to do to prepare himself for that moment. I think he told me he didn't even have to go down there to like sometime in September. So as AAU grinds to a halt here in another couple of weeks or so, like man, he'll be locked in from July to September to see how much better he can get before he even steps foot down there too prolific.
Austin Sears continues to gain national attention. Man, he's locked up a Peach Jam appearance coming this week. Just texted me. I think we're gonna have him on tomorrow. But man, he had a special weekend in Las Vegas during the July live period. What makes Austin special?
Man, like Austin's a total package, man. Like, you was talking earlier about, your IQ and feel for the game. Like, man, Austin's off the charts, man. His dad Tony started Austin playing national of AAU, and he's like in first and second grade. So, you talking about the foundation that he laid when he was in second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth grade. Like they're traveling all over the country, going to different places, AAU nationals, and every top camp that you can play against all the top kids. So you're talking about laying a foundation for a kid at an early age. Like man, his dad checked every box with that, and then as I got to continue to kind of get to know him more and work with him more and more, like, man, it's kind of like what I was saying earlier. Like, Austin's one of those people that if I take him to the gym tonight and show him something, like, he'll be in the EYBL doing it tomorrow. Like, he picks up things so quickly. He's just so heady and smart. He's seeing the game, a play or two ahead of where everybody else is. Almost like Larry Bird, like where he's just like, you think you see the next play. I see it 2 plays ahead of the next play, and that's kind of how he plays. And then you add in that, he's a sniper from three and shoots the heck out of the ball. And I mean, a lot of people don't understand. Like, I mean, he averaged over 8 assists a game this year. I think on Max Preps that was like number 2 in the state. So, there's not a lot of kids. I was telling somebody there's not a lot of kids that could literally walk out there and drop 40 or could walk out there and drop 10 or 12 assists. That list is very small. Well, he's one of them. And he's done that. He had games last year he had 13, 14 assists, and he had games he had 30 plus points. So, the skill set that he has, and once again, like with Braxton, a kid that's in the gym 2 or 3 times a day, a kid that really wants to get better. And one of the things I tell people about him, early on, I think he had some doubters and probably some haters, just like any great player does. But he's overcome all that, and he's proved all of them wrong. And a lot of it is just a testament to his work ethic and how much he loves the game and how much he puts into it. And I mean, at the end of the day, like I tell people all the time, he does a lot of things that translate to the next level. A lot of people get confused and they come watch a player and they might have 30, but the college coach is not really evaluating that he had 30. He's evaluating how he got the 30. So, when you look at Austin and it's, deep shooting, great mid range game, 90% at the free throw line, great finisher in traffic. And then you look at the fact that he can make other people better. He makes your team better. He makes everybody on the floor better. Man, it's hard to combine somebody that can be that lethal as a scorer, but also be a prime time playmaker. I mean, just like the EYBL team he's playing, he's got two top 20 kids in the country, and he's still averaging 14 points a game. That just tells you that he can play with other great players, which is a very, very important thing at the next level.
Yes, sir. Uh, what really stands out, his pace and decision making really stand out to me. Is that natural or developed?
I think it's a little bit of both. Like, I remember when we first started working a lot more closely his freshman year, felt like I said, "What do you want to get better?" He said, "Handling pressure." And so I think he's always kind of had this like a little bit of like a Luka Doncic pace where it looks like he's not really moving fast. But like I used to, and people used to mistake it when he was, I think people are learning that, but when he was a little bit younger, a year or two ago, they looked at it like he's not athletic enough. And I'd always say, well, do you think that guy's guarding him and that's guarding him in the EYBLs? Yeah, he's athletic. I said, well, why is he going by him all the time? So he has like that smoothness and that pace control to where if he wants to hit the accelerator, he can hit the accelerator, but he can play at different speeds. And I think, prime example, like I said, Jalen Brunson, like, he's fast to slow, slow to fast. You don't know when he's going to attack you. And that's kind of how Austin is. He can play at different speeds, play at different paces. And that's when you talk about upper level development, elite development, and guys that are trying to be high D1 players and pros, like being able to play at different paces and different control and being poised and knowing when to speed up and slow down. Man, those are elite traits that elite players have.
Yeah, definitely with the guard, pace and tempo are like just as big as ball handling and passing. How much has his shooting improved?
I mean, Austin's always been a great shooter. I mean, like I said, even back when he was a young kid, he's always been a kid that can fill it up. I think in the last probably 6 months or a year, I think he continues. Obviously, he's gotten stronger. I think he's continued to kind of stretch the court with his range, and I think he's shown that he's capable of making tougher threes. I always tell people like the speed that you get a shot off in high school and the speed you get it off in college is two different speeds. Like I said earlier, the closing speed and the size and the length, all that stuff is going to move faster. I think if you watch video of Austin, he is able to make those tough like D1 type threes now where he can take a dribble or two and separate and make a shot with somebody closing in his face. And those are the kind of shots that you're not trying to live off those shots at the next level, but the guys that can make them are going to separate themselves from the guys that got to be wide open. And Austin's one of those guys that can do that.
What part of his game has grown the most?
Mm, that's pretty tough, man. He's grown in so many areas. I would say kind of like what I was back to Braxton. The knock on Austin's always been that he's thin and stuff, but I think his dad was telling me earlier today he's up to like 160, 165 pounds. So like his body has come a long way in the last probably 6 months or so, which is a major thing for him because I don't think anybody's really questioning his skill or his talent or his IQ. I think the whole country is seeing that and figuring that out. So as his body continues to get stronger, and once again, like think about some of the guys that already have the 180, 85-pound body that he has. He don't have that yet, and he's still dominating the way he is. I mean, he's got 10 D1 offers, number 13 point guard in the country. He's doing all this stuff as his body's developing. So can you imagine, you're talking about a kid that's still got 4 years of high school. Imagine what he looks like when he walks out the door of his high school. What does he look like after he's been in a Division I weight program for 2 years? Like eventually, he's going to fill out and look strong, and then all of a sudden you're going to look up and he's got this Peyton Pritchard body and he's got all this crazy skill and all this stuff, and then it's going to be really scary what he looks like.
You know, his dad told me yesterday that he was 6'2" now, and
is.
He played at the in the Uncle Drew League or circuit down in Texas, and I seen a video where he had a two hand dunk, and I was like, oh snap, that's Austin Sears doing that. I've seen Austin, shoot, pass, play at the guard position, but I never seen him finish like that. So that's one thing that I've probably seen out of him lately that I think has grown the most is finishing. He's able to get up there and kind of play off 2 feet. So, um, you've been around him more than I have. I've seen clips, I've seen him play AAU stuff, but seeing him do that, I was like, oh boy, he's added that to his arsenal, to his resume. I was like, that's big time.
It
So
was
what
actually
makes him?
it was actually
What is
about
it?
actually about a year ago, and I took him to Timo's elite camp, and we've seen him kind of like dunk off and on, like in workouts and different things like that, but like never like in a game. And I'm literally standing there talking to Simo's head coach and associate head coach while he's playing, and he gets a steal and goes down and just like two-hand flushes one in the game. I was like, oh man, like once this starts kicking in, it's going to be really scary. And you could see it, like you said. I mean, he's playing above the rim now. He's quicker off the dribble. Like his lateral movement on defense has improved a lot. And I mean, like I said, like I mean, think about it, man. Like he's just scratching the surface with his body. Like imagine like a year, 2 years, three. Like what is that going to look like? Like people don't understand. Like people that work like him and work like Braxton, like man, they get better daily and weekly. What's going to happen when you give them 6 months, a year, 2 years? Like it's going to be scary.
Absolutely. What makes him such a great leader? At a point guard position, you need a leader. What makes Austin such a great leader?
I would say that he's just so smart. Like Austin knows how to make the right play. And like talking back about college coaches, there's no amount of college coach in the country that don't want a point guard that knows how to make the right play. Even if you look at the highest level, like a Luka Doncic or somebody, like they're getting 34, 35 points, but he's getting 8 or 9 assists every game too. And what that tells you is like he's just reading the defense. If the defense is converging on him, he's spraying it out or he's dropping it off to the guys or he's lobbing it for dunks. And if the defense spreads out, he's going to get into that scoring bag and he's going to score that ball. And that's kind of how Austin is like he knows how to read the defense. He's really dangerous in pick and roll. So many schools now that pick and roll is a major part of their offense. I mean, you talk about a guy that's 6'2" and can get over top of you and shoot. You're talking about a guy you can't go under on screens. You're talking about a guy that can throw pocket passes and lob passes, and he can throw the left hand skip pass across. I mean, like he's got so many different things he can do. It's like he's going to make the right play most of the time. It's really just going to boil down to like is either he or the guy he's passing to making the shot, but he's going to be able to create a great shot nearly every time down the floor.
The stat that really stood out to me that his dad sent: zero turnovers in the UIBL. Zero turnovers.
I tell people all the time, man, unless you played in it or unless you really like sit there and watch games, like people don't understand the level that is. I mean, you talking about the speed and the athleticism and the strength and like I would just say like how hard people play at that level. You can take a bad EYBL team, and people don't understand the intensity and the speed and the strength that's on that floor. And for him to be able to, like you said, have games he's at, excuse me, had no turnovers, and I know he's had several 20-point games, and like to be able to do that at the highest level against the best players in the country. I mean, like, there's just not very many people that's capable of doing that.
Why do coaches love players like Austin?
Winner wants to win, like will do whatever it takes to win. I think that's probably an underlooked facet of Austin's game. It's kind of like you always see 28 points and 8 assists, and like you gloss over the skill stuff that he does and his results, but when a college coach pops the tape in, like they're going to see all that, no question. But they also see, the communication of him switching a screen, like him lifting a teammate up off the floor, him saying, my guys made two threes in a row. Let me call a play and bring him off a stagger and see if he can hit the third one. Like so many things that he does like that contribute to winning is also what's going to pop off the screen just as much as the scoring prowess that he has or the passing prowess he has. Like he's got it covered from all different angles. So like I said earlier, as his body continues to develop and get stronger and stuff, it's going to be really scary. And somebody's going to figure out real quick 2 years from now when he steps on a campus that, man, we're pretty damn lucky to have Austin Sears.
Absolutely. And, you know, I've been scouting for 10 years, and the difference between good scouts and evaluators is, man, Greg, everybody can look at a highlight and clip and be like, man, that kid can shoot. But when college coaches evaluate players, that's not what they look for. They look for the things like you just said, the communication on defense, picking their kids up, understanding what their teammates need, to get their confidence up, to get a shot in, to win. So, um, most definitely see that out of him, man. And he is a winner. And I don't know, 2 more years, like you said, his body develops. That kid is somebody's gonna get lucky to have him. But the next kid I want to talk about with is, man, I remember it's probably been a decade. It seems like a decade ago that I seen you and Ty Price in the gym.
Yeah,
You've spent so much time working with Ty Price. Tell us a little bit about Ty's game, man.
man, just elite shooter, elite playmaker. Like, the things that Ty can do to impact the game and the way he plays, like, man, people don't, understand like how much he's really put into the game to do it. I mean, his resume, throughout Kentucky high school is like, there's just not very many people that's ever going to touch it. I think he finished, 15th all time in scoring, and a lot of people, you got to understand, like some of these other guys, like Perry and some of them other guys, and I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with it because there's not, but like they had the middle school years. Ty was only had 4 games in middle school because he actually had a back injury. So like almost all of his stats are from 4 years of high school. I think he scored 20 points in eighth grade before he got hurt. So like literally all of his numbers are through 4 years. So like when you look at that, that makes it even more impressive because most of the guys that are ahead of him on the scoring list have had 5 and some of them even 6 years of varsity play. So I think Ty finished number one all time in threes made per game, like 3.96. I think he's number two all time in total made threes, and I mean he's got every school record out here. I mean he's done so much. Honestly, man, I had to like start writing some of it down to even keep up with it. It was almost like every night there was a new record. There was something new that he did that only a handful of people's done, and I mean you're talking about somebody that kind of got it out the mud, like that would be him. Like when I met him in seventh grade, nobody outside of this little area knew who he was, and I mean he made himself into a 4-star player that had a boatload of Division I athletes and had every accolade that you can have. And I mean, man, he still even like to this day is like getting better and not even scratching the surface. So it's going to be scary, to see where he's at a few years down the line for sure.
What stood out during his first workouts?
Determination, like won't take an answer. Like he wanted to learn. He want. It's like I said. I know it sounds like a common trait with maybe all three, but like that's how the great ones are. Is like they want to get better. They want every single advantage. It doesn't matter how small it is or what the little small detail is. They want to be able to take more out of it than the other person. And I tell people all the time. I might be doing a group training. It's got 10 people there, and I said, look, you're all going to do the same amount of shots, basically the same amount of reps, but some people are going to get more out of it than others. The person that can keep their mind engaged in every single rep is going to gain more out of it than the person that's engaged in every other rep or every couple of reps, and that's kind of who Ty is. And then you throw in the fact that he's just crazy competitive, and once again a winner all through. I mean, he won a region championship at Butler County. They've had a high school team here for 75 years and have never won a region championship. I don't think people understand like little things like that. Like they say, oh, this guy won two or three. Yeah, at schools it's 120. So they're churning out talent every year. He walked in. That would be like going to like a low D1 team that wins 3 games a year and saying we're going to win the NCAA championship. That's kind of like what he did in high school. He went somewhere where they'd never won nothing, and turned them into winners. And like that's hard to do. And then you look at he's not doing it because he's 6'5", like Braxton or somebody. He's just doing it with straight skill and determination and an elite work ethic and competitiveness.
How coachable is he?
Very coachable, kind of like with Austin, like a coach on the floor, super smart, like knows how to make the right play, knows how to read the game, and he's just got so many weapons at his disposal. It's just like, whatever you want to do on the defense to take one thing away, then he's just going to go to something else. And if you try to take that away, he's going to go to something else. And he's just got so many different options. Right hand, left hand, floaters, either foot. Range three ball, off the dribble. It's like, passing, seeing things, passing with both hands, like getting into gaps that other people can't get into. He's just got so many things at his arsenal that, you're not going to take it all away from him. So he's going to figure out what you're not taking away, and he's going to attack you in those areas, and he's going to make you pay, and he's going to win. That's what he does.
What do people overlook about his game?
Um, I'm not sure that really, like, as he got older, I'm not really sure that anybody really overlooked it. I mean, I guess the thing that you could say some people overlook is obviously he's not big. He's 5'10", so he's not 6'2", 6'3", 6'4". So I think, naturally people want to kind of say, if he was a little bit bigger, but like I said, I mean, he's played against so many people. He's played on teams with people that's in the NBA. Like, he's already played against all those guys, and like he's proven himself, at the highest level in all those situations, and that's what he'll continue to do. So it's like, and he's one of those people too. Like, he sees somebody, doubting him. Like, man, just makes that chip on his shoulder grow a little taller. So I kind of like it when people do that. And he does too.
What skills make him successful?
Man, I mean, kind of talked about it, but I mean, just I tell people all the time. I mean, there's not a lot of people you could line up every D1 player and every NBA player. There's not a lot of people who could shoot like him. I mean, we was doing a drill in the gym about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it was he had to hit 90 out of 100 NBA threes off the dribble, and he was a little bit up and down with it that day. I think I actually looked at the clock when we got done. I think it took him right at 51 minutes to do it, which that's a crazy drill. And he got into the 70s and 80s
Mhm.
several times and had to start all over again. But that speaks to who he is, though. It's like if you put a challenge in front of him, he's gonna keep taking that challenge until he passes the test. And once again, 90 out of 100 NBA threes off the dribble, like you could keep most people in there until the end of time. They couldn't do it. I mean, it takes. I look at some of the numbers that Steph Curry and Damian Lillard and some of these guys hit. I mean, he's right in the ballpark of a lot of those numbers. I seen him talking about Darren Peterson hitting 63s in a 3-minute shooting drill at Kansas, and they said he does it consistently. Ty was hitting 70 and 75 in the same 3-minute drill at UT Martin last year. So like that just gives you an example of what I'm talking about. Like he does a lot of things with shooting that ball, and that's kind of the separator with him. But what I like is like once again when you put the film in, even if he's not scoring, he's a great passer. He's a great point guard. He's a great leader. Like people want to play with him. He's a winner. Like he's competitive. He's tough. Like he's a coach on the floor. Like he wants this thing. So like all those traits, separate him just as much as the shooting does.
What areas are you continuing to develop with Ty?
Man, everything. Even like shooting. Like we don't think that it's an unfinished product because it's not. So it's like I don't really ever feel like that somebody gets to a level and it's like, oh, well, that's good enough now. Like, man, it might be like a little bit better at times, but like you just keep trying to get better. So I've never really looked at somebody and just been like, oh, okay, you can shoot the three, that's good enough. Let's work on something. Man, shoot it better, shoot it longer, shoot it with the hand in your face, shoot it more consistent. Like you want to continue to get better, and that's how he is. He just wants to continue to get better in everything.
Where do you see him a year from now?
Man, playing at a Division I school, probably making a lot of money. He got medically concussed about halfway through the year. And so we filed some paperwork and stuff, and he's going to be able to get back. So he's actually still going to have all of his eligibility next year. So that was a big thing for us, and a big opportunity for him. So he'll definitely be somewhere doing some crazy stuff soon for sure.
Oh, so he's not committed anywhere yet, or is he still at UT Martin?
No, so he actually got in the transfer portal, and he's going to make a final decision on that probably in the next few weeks. That's been a pretty long and drawn out process with a lot of different schools and things, but he'll be making that announcement in a few weeks. So definitely be excited for that to come out.
Which NBA player, or what NBA player would you encourage him to study? I'm sure he studies a lot, but you guys watch a lot of guys. Who do you guys watch?
Man, especially when he was young coming up, it was a lot of Trey Young and a lot of Steph Curry. When he was younger, his favorite player was Kyrie Irving, and so we did a lot of the Kyrie videos and stuff. But like Trey's kind of similar to Ty. He's not much bigger. Trey's like 6'1", so he tries to emulate. It's hard to say he emulates somebody 6'9". So like he looks for people that's similar in stature as him or a similar type game, and kind of what I was saying earlier. Like I think it really developed his passing and his feel for the game and his vision because he's always had all this scoring prowess, but now when he can come off and throw pocket passes and hook passes and all these different angles he can throw passes from, like it's really enhanced his game and grown his game. And you obviously see a lot of that with Trey Young, and then obviously, and Curry does a lot of that as well. And then obviously, we all know what kind of shooter Steph Curry is. So Ty's always emulating him and his footwork and how quick he can get his shot off and just how consistent he is and things like that.
Colt Holtzclaw. Tell everyone about Colt.
And one of the best freshmen in Kentucky. Like I've been telling people for a while, and I've got I've got several of them coming, but he's definitely one of the ones that's coming next, man. He's already about 6'1". He's just gangly long. He kind of built like Austin, really like this super long, like 6'4" wingspan. He's got huge hands, and he's very fortunate that he's in the gym with people like Ty Price every day, and a lot of these other college players that I'm with. So there's not very many kids that hasn't even stepped foot in high school that can say they consistently get to work out with college players. And Colt's one of those guys, and that's kind of what's really like rapidly kind of developed his game. And I mean, he's had games this summer. He's had 48 points in games. He's hit 11 threes and 8 threes, and even this summer in varsity summer play, I think he was second on his high school team in scoring, and I think he was first in made threes. So I mean, he's continued to just develop at a high rate. I mean, he's a great shooter, range shooter off the line, high IQ player. He's definitely to me got a chance to be a Division I player.
What makes him unique?
Man, and like I've been saying, like his work ethic, like he's in the gym, he's hungry, he wants it, and he's like a little sponge in the gym. Like he's gonna, if I tell him 16 things, he's gonna remember 16 things, and then if Ty tells him five more things, he's gonna remember those five things he told Ty, and he's gonna take all that stuff home and he's gonna put it in his mind, and he's gonna be able to retain that knowledge. And like he's great at picking things up. He's great at learning, kind of like I was talking about earlier with Austin, them too. Like he's great at like learning something and applying it to the game quickly. So he's got a bright future, and I think that I think his name's already definitely started to pop across Kentucky and probably even outside of Kentucky from some of the people I've heard from. But I would say that once the school season starts and into AAU this year, I think he's going to be not only a high name in Kentucky. I think
What's next? What's next for him?
he's just in the gym working hard, getting better every day. Like I mean, he's going to go to a few camps and different things like that. But nothing like that's really on the docket other than his development right now. He's getting to spend a lot of time with Ty in the gym, and the main thing at that age is development. Not a lot of people are really focusing on there ain't no national rankings out there at that age really, as far as like ESPN or on three or any of that stuff. So we just really been focused on development. He jumps in and plays a few things here and there, but it's just more about development. And we'll go to some of the camps, and next up recruits. And there's a few Division 1 elite camps that he'll go to and things of that nature. And other than that, man, just in the gym every day getting better.
What should college coaches know about Colt?
His skill set, kind of like I was talking about earlier. Like he's a guy that can do both. He's a guy that can shoot it. He's a guy that can score it. Got a great mid-range game, but one of the things that people see when they get a chance to actually watch him, handle the ball is he's a great playmaker. He's a great passer. Like he can see things, he can pass. He can make other guys better, and kind of like we've been talking about, those are things that are going to be really important as he continues to develop and as his body continues to start getting stronger and stuff. Like he'll be a household name with college coaches, no doubt about it.
Sorry about that. Um, let's talk about another one of your kids. I think he's a 2031 kid, Ace Hankins. I've never even heard of this kid. Uh, you know, from what you said, he's continued making strides. What have you seen from his development?
Yeah, so Ace, he just recently transferred to Butler County. His dad played at Butler County and was a Division 1 basketball player out of Butler County, and he just transferred in probably about halfway through the summer. 2031 kid, so obviously he hadn't even touched high school yet. He's going into eighth grade next year, but man, he come over and made an instant impact for Butler County. And man, he had some really big games this summer, actually against some of the better players in Kentucky. I know he had a 26-point game against St. Mary's, and they got a guard that's I think 2029 that a lot of people think might be a D1 player down the road. And Ace had a big game against him, and I think he had a couple other games. He had 20 or 25, and I think he ended up averaging right at 18 points a game this summer. And as I told some people, like I mean, tell me the 2031 that averaged 18 a game in varsity this summer. I haven't heard it from anybody. So he'll have a huge year. It wouldn't surprise me if he's a leading eighth grade scorer in the state next year. He's definitely got the capability to do that. And like I said, Dad was a D1 player, so he's going to be a great athlete, in the long run. And Dad's about 6'3", 6'4", so hopefully Ace will keep on shooting up a little bit. But Ace has a chance to be a great player.
What's his biggest strength?
Um, just the kind of guy was saying with Colt and even like Cannon Rock and some of those guys. It's just like being in the gym with Ty, being in the gym with great players, and like letting that rub off on them. You can tell somebody how people do things, but when you see somebody that really does things the right way and really do it a different way and really put more time into it, and you're able to step into their domain and kind of see how they do things. I mean, I think it probably rubs off on younger players more than words can.
Where does he still need to improve?
I mean, everything. He's a 2031. Like I said, there's no maxing out in any areas. I'd say the main thing on the short term is he's got the ball in his hands more, so he's learned how to handle the ball and make the right play and make decisions and handle pressure and things that any young guard has to go through and learn. And I think that he's in a position where he's learning those things and he's going to have opportunity to learn those things in the future. And like I said, I'd look for a huge eighth grade varsity season out of him, and then it'll be interesting to see what shoe circuit he ends up on next spring.
Where do you see his future?
Man, I think once again, like I think he's got a chance to be a Division 1 player. I mean, I think first of all, there's only a handful of kids that really have that talent, and I think he's one of them. But it's going to be what they put into it. But when your dad's a former Division 1 player and your dad played above the rim and all those kind of things, and then you're probably dealing with some great genetics, I would say. So like that's never hurt anybody. And Ace has continued to develop his game and his skill and his shot and everything. And if he can stay on path and stuff, I think he definitely he was on Pierre, Rondo Elite. Rajon Rondo coached Ace for about 3 years. So there you go. You're around one of the best basketball minds ever. He had the opportunity to do that. So things like that make a major impact on a young player.
I think one thing people underestimate is studying great players. How much NBA basketball do you watch?
Tons of it. I keep it. I'm watching all the summer league stuff. I'm recording games. I'm going back and watching stuff, and I get on YouTube and different things like that and watch things and stuff too. But it's a constant thing because it's I can't really make my players better if I'm not getting better. The more knowledge that I can build and retain, and the better I can grow at what I do, the more wisdom I can embark on them. And I think that's probably one of the reasons that I'm good at what I do, because I'm the guy that's up 2 o'clock in the morning doing this stuff and preparing things for the next day and laying things out and sending texts and making phone calls and just doing all this stuff to grow these players and enhance them and bring about opportunity and just make myself better and just like I said embark that wisdom on them.
How often do you use NBA film during training?
Um, I'd say quite a bit. A lot of times if I do film, it's probably before we actually start. I might show them something, how a player's doing certain things. But once we're into the actual court time, I like to like maximize it and obviously use it for doing things. Now I do like to send a lot of film like around the gym time, before, after, at night, like show them things. I say, hey, we worked on this yesterday. Here is so and so doing this, and like let them see that. And I think a lot of that stuff is kind of really with me done more like before or after the workout than probably during the workout.
In the NBA?
I'm sorry, you cut off there. I just heard NBA.
What players do guards need to study?
Yeah, man. Honestly, if they're in the NBA, you can't really go wrong studying any of them. But I just think obviously Brunson, Curry, Trey Young, um, Kyrie Irving, like all these guards that are not necessarily doing it with metrics. They're not doing it with the 45-inch vert or the 6'9" wingspan or they're 6'6". They're doing it around the intangibles that we talked about and skill. And those are things that you can be 5'8" or 6'8". Like you can learn to be smarter, you can learn to work harder, you can grow your skill set. So I think it's great to watch players like that. And I think it's also great to like one thing I think people should do is like if you're a great offensive player but you're not that good on defense, watch some guys that are great on defense and like watch what they're doing and like let some of that kind of rub off on you. Like pick up a couple of things that they're doing that maybe you're not doing, and don't just watch the guys that you 100% want to emulate. Watch guys that can do things that you're not good at.
Is watching film just as important as getting in the gym?
Yeah, yeah, it's hard to maybe say what the weight of whichever one is. You can't obviously just sit there and watch it every day and not go do it, but you can't go out there and do it and never watch what people that are better than you or how they're doing it. So obviously it takes both, but I think film is big. I think you have to kind of figure out like who needs more film and who doesn't. Sometimes the player that overthinks things on the court and like makes decisions slower. Sometimes if you keep filling their mind with things, it makes them keep slowing down more instead of learning how to think faster. And conversely, people that can really think well and can process things quickly, you can show them more because they've already got the speed of the game down and their instinct is there. And so like you can kind of show them more things like that because me showing them a quick read or a quick shot fake here, or a quick pivot there is not going to make them overthink because they're an instinctive player anyway.
So I want to talk a little bit about recruiting. When should players start preparing for recruiting?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to depend on the level of the player too. I don't think you can just say ninth grade or 10th grade or 11th grade or eighth grade or whatever. I think according to where the player is. I think most people, I would say, at least most people that are knowledgeable, would understand that college coaches are really going to get way more serious when you're like in 10th and 11th, because then they're actually like putting eyes on you and kind of like saying like, okay, is this a good fit or not? Versus, yeah, they're watching things and they're reading things and they're checking Twitter and they're making phone calls when you're in probably eighth and ninth for sure, because it's kind of putting you on a radar then. So it's kind of like it's kind of like putting your name on a list. Like, man, I need to check this kid out in a couple of years. I've heard about him. I've heard about Cold Old Squad. Let's actually go watch him when he's a sophomore or junior or whatever. So I think all that stuff matters, but I think too that it's just like people get too caught up in it sometimes, and then they think, well, was this guy's got that offer and I didn't get it and I'm better than him, and it's like some of them let it discourage them, where it's just like, man, I've always just like keep getting better. Like, I put one rule in place with Ty when he was in seventh grade, and he can recite it to you on the spot if you ask him. It's called the golden rule. It's the only rule I've ever put in with him. And I told him, like, if you get 50 tomorrow in a game and you kill it, we're going to work in the gym the next day. If you get two tomorrow and you play terrible, we're going to work in the gym the next day. So, like, what is the message that I'm sending him? We're going to keep doing this process over and over again. And we're not going to let the highs change what we do, and we're not going to let the lows change what we're good. We're going to keep on plugging along every single day until we get to where we want to be. And that's kind of like, I think that's a great message for everybody, because you have some kids out there that they get those early offers and then they rest on those laurels and then they don't develop and then all that stuff disappears. And then you get some kids that are playing really great, but they don't get those early offers or that attention. And they see somebody else get it and they say, well, I'm never going to get it. So, like, I don't know why I'm going to the gym 6 days a week. This guy over here goes three and he's got two offers and I ain't got none. Well, you're focusing on the wrong things. You just need to keep getting better every day, keep getting better every day, and keep waiting for that opportunity, because at the end of the day, when that college coach does sit down, there's no gray area. You're either ready or you're not. And a lot of kids fall off path on different things and they don't really maximize what they could be as a player, which is obviously going to hurt recruiting.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest, I guess, advice I give to kids is run your own race. Don't worry about other people's race, marathon. Run your own race. Don't worry about how many offers they have, what they eat for lunch, who they play with. At the end of the day, it's your future, it's your goals and your dreams. So don't put any of your energy into someone else's race or dreams or journey. Stay on your race and worry about your race. So what is it?
I said, no question, I agree.
What are college coaches looking for today?
Things that translate, things that impact winning. That's why I said that I'm sure they watched the 2 minute highlight video just to kind of see what you can do, but that's a very base thing. And they're not just going to watch the highlight video and call you up and say, we're going to drop an offer. They're going to watch some full game film, and then they're going to put eyes on you and see what you're doing when you're not playing well. All that's going to play into it. That highlight tape is just kind of a base, and sometimes that can, maybe put you ahead of a couple people, but it's not the end all be all. So they're going to look for things that translate to their level, and they're going to look for things that impact winning. So, when you talk about, things that translate to their level, that's kind of back to some of the stuff we was talking about earlier. But like, you might be getting 25 a game, but if you're getting 14 points on snowbird layups, and you're a 5'11" guard and you got three putbacks, like that's not translating to the next game. It might have helped you get 25 against whoever you was playing against, but that doesn't mean that you're ready to play at the level that that college is recruiting. So I think when they watch video, they watch, like, you get that shot off, and can you get that? You might be a great shooter, but can you get it off against the competition we're playing? You might be a good decision maker in pick and roll, but are you a good decision maker in pick and roll when a 6'10" guy's chasing you, trying to trap you, not a 6'3" guy? Like, things that's going to translate to their level. And then you talk about impact winning. I think that's one thing that a lot of kids probably get lost in a little bit, because there's a lot of things you can do without the ball that impact winning. And when people talk about players to emulate, nobody talks about a Draymond Green or a Dennis Rodman. Yet 95% of what they do is without the ball. It's defense, it's rebounding, it's hustle, it's IQ, it's physicality, it's knowing how to play the game. It's like, man, like, do some of that stuff. College coaches want, Patrick Beverly, like, he didn't sign an $80 million contract 4 or 5 years ago because he's a great scorer. He's just a goon on defense, and he's going to make your whole defense better. He's a master communicator. He's never going to get caught in a screen with him because of the way he talks. If it's a loose ball, he's going to try to break your leg to get down there to get it. Like, man, coaches look for people like that. But like, a lot of kids think that they only sign the guy that averages 25, and that's not what the college coach is thinking. That's the perception that somebody's put in that kid's head.
So what separates recruits that receive offers and the ones that don't?
I would say, this once again, like most people assume it, but let's not skip over it. But it's just being that good. And I think the other thing is, like, who's in your circle, and I think like opportunity matters. And sometimes your opportunity comes from sometimes the people in your circle. There's small handfuls of people around Kentucky that can make phone calls to coaches, and coaches are going to listen to them. Or coaches say, "Hey, watch this guy's film," and you call and they say, "Okay, if you said watch it, I'll watch it." Or, "Hey, they're playing an hour from you. Will you go on the road and watch so and so play in Louisville?" Well, they're going to go watch them. Like, so, those things lead to opportunity, which is why it's important. Who you have in your circle and who you kind of have pushing for you. Has that person had other people that's been, wildly successful, in front of them? It's just like with me. I've been a college coach for 7 years. I've got 3 4 stars in the last 3 years. So when some of these younger guys that you talk to me about that's coming behind, like, people are going to listen to what I say because of some of the players that I've been able to churn out. So opportunity matters, and circle matters, but that's at the end of the day, you got to step on the court and do it. That's kind of what it comes down to.
What's one thing every player listening tonight can improve immediately?
Work ethic. There's no substitute for it. A buddy of mine's an NBA scout told me several years ago. He said, "Greg, there's two kinds of players in the NBA." He said, "There's the Giannis or the LeBron. They're 6'8", 6'9", freak athlete, crazy body. You can see it coming a mile away, like they're going to play in the NBA, right?" He said, "But what a lot of people don't talk about is the guy that won't take no for an answer. Nobody, Steph Curry's dad was a great NBA player, but nobody believed that Steph Curry was an NBA player coming out of high school because he didn't have one high major that wanted to give him a scholarship. And think about how many phone calls his dad probably made. But guess what? He didn't take no for an answer. He said, 'Fine, I'll go to Davidson.' Well, at the time, Davidson's a big name now because of him. But at the time, Davidson was like, nobody really knew who that was. Well, he changed that. He wouldn't take no for an answer. So, like, the guys that, I mean, Patrick Beverly played 8 years in Europe before he got to the NBA. Like, that's why he's tenacious like that. That's why he's, aggressive the way he's aggressive, because he's had so many people tell him he's not going to do that. So when somebody said, "Hey, come to training camp," he's ready to kill people. Like, this is my chance. Like, man, you're not taking it away from me. So, the guy that don't take no for an answer is the guy that's really hard to stop.
Yeah, most definitely getting that opportunity and just making the best of it. Let's have a little fun with some rapid fire. Hardest worker.
That's tough. I mean, I'd have to go with Todd just because I'm with him every day, and some of the stuff that I've seen him do is like, you almost wouldn't believe it unless you knew me. It's so crazy.
Most competitive.
I'm not sure I can answer that one, man. That would be tough.
Highest basketball IQ.
Probably Ty and Austin.
Best shooter. I already know this answer.
I don't think nobody can touch him on that.
Best finisher.
I'd say Austin. He could go above the rim, but man, he's got a lot of switching hands and inside the frame and outside the frame, like high floaters, like great finish, and that's something he didn't really have a year or two ago, but he's got it now.
Best passer.
Mm, Probably Ty and Austin, probably pretty equal.
Best defender.
Hmm. Um, Not sure on that.
Most underrated player you've trained.
Most underrated player I've trained. Um, the crazy thing is, they was a lot of them was underrated before they got to high school. I'll say Colt for now, just because his name's on the radar, but it's not on the radar like it will be here in about another year. So I'll say Colt on that one.
Most improved player.
Colt, because he's trained with me for about a year and a half, and like honestly, I didn't really see this coming when he was younger. There's another kid named Benton Weldon that I would put on that list too, that plays at Logan County. He's a top freshman. Cannon Rock's another kid that's really, really good in 2030. I'd put him in there too.
The funniest player.
Um, Probably.
Loudest player in the gym.
What's that now?
Loudest player in the gym.
Ty.
Which player always wants one more drill?
All of them.
Great answer. That's awesome.
That,
So,
that,
what's your favorite drill to teach?
um, I don't know that I really have a favorite drill. I mean, everybody knows I'm crazy about shooting. I mean, look at all these guys around me, how they shoot it. So I think, probably shooting. Shooting. Rick Pitino once said, "Shooting cures a multitude of sins," and I think he's definitely right about that.
Toughest workout you've ever put someone through?
Whew, man. I remember Ty's freshman year, we was coming back from an AAU tournament at Bradley Bill Elite, and I didn't think he played very well. So we made a 4-hour drive back home, and we got home at 2:30 in the morning. I made him work out for 2 hours and do full court running drills and shooting drills for 2 straight hours at like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
I,
Um,
I
Man,
will.
Greg, I appreciate you coming on,
It's
or you
actually
taking the time to what?
one other thing I want to add to that. It's probably one of the craziest things I ever seen. I still got the thing saved on my phone. So when he was in 8th grade, he was going to his first Adidas shoe tournament. And so like we turned the shooting machine on. I said, make 23s in a row. I said, when you do, I'll turn the machine off. And I can't remember the exact number, but I know this is really close. But he shot like 1,163s before he hit 20 in a row, and he never stopped until he hit the 20. Like it's crazy.
That's wild. I could see him doing that. Really can. But I just want to appreciate you taking the time to join me tonight. There's really a lot of value in, hearing directly from someone like you who's, helping develop some of the Kentucky's, top talent. Before we wrap up, where can everyone find you on social media and what's next for Greg Keown's training?
Yeah, so I mean, at Twitter, I think it's at GregCown23. Instagram, man, I think it's Greg Keown, maybe Greg underscore Keown. I have to double check that. I'm not sure off the top of my head. Where you can find me is studying YouTube videos and watching games here in about 10 minutes when I answer all these texts from some of these guys that have texted me asking me questions. So back to the development immediately to kind of answer your question.
Well, thanks again, Greg, for joining us tonight on the Pure Prospects podcast. If you've enjoyed tonight's episode, be sure to subscribe to Pure Prospects Insider on Substack for just $7.99 per month. You get a free 7-day trial where you'll get exclusive recruiting coverage, player evals, interviews, rankings, and NCAA live period updates, and much more. You can follow us on social media at pure_prospects, and we'll see you next time on the Pure Prospects podcast. Have a good night, Greg.
Okay, thank you guys.
Yes, sir.